Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I have a very exciting interview with an old friend, somebody we've known each other since Sunderland were just relegated to the Championship about 8 years ago. James Copley. How are we doing, James?
I'm good, yeah. Yeah, nice to be here. I think I remember going to Sunderland's first home game in the Championship against Derby County with you and your brother. I think it was 1-1.
Yeah.
We were quite hopeful then that it would be a decent season, and it did not turn out to be.
Yeah, we to be fair, at the start of that season, we weren't actually that bad. Like, under Grayson, we just couldn't
Norwich,
win. Yeah, we beat
yeah,
Norwich. Due to
we
Sheffield
got
Wednesday.
drew at Sheffield Wednesday. That Sheffield Wednesday one was a bit of a killer, wasn't it? Because Honeyman put us ahead, and then we got pegged back. Was
This
it
is
like
Screamer. Dave Jones, maybe?
I want to say it was like around the 60th or 70th minute, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
Or
was a
something like
ping
that.
from like 30 yards.
Yeah, and then after that, it just went downhill,
Yeah.
didn't it? I mean, getting sacked on Halloween, it's nearly the anniversary now, isn't it?
Oh yeah, well we were at that game together. Bolton Wanderers, 3-3.
We were, yeah. It was fun times. Simon Grayson, bless him, went into Hartlepool recently, didn't he? And didn't go too well for him. Although I'm not sure anybody could go to Hartlepool and do well, but I felt a little bit sorry for him, to be honest. But the parallels between the two clubs, I know Hartlepool are a bit further down, but massive change in the summer, relegations, ownership problems, and he must just be a glutton for punishment. Bless him. He seems like
Yeah.
the nicest man in the world. You met him in a hotel, didn't you? That sounds really seedy, but sort of by
You
accident.
know, I did. I
That's just
was
triggered. It's just triggered a memory that for me, actually.
yeah. This was yeah. I was in. Oh, I can't remember which hotel I was. I was in like one of the ones like Ramside Hall or something. Or a couple of nights away with the wife, or at the time girlfriend, and yeah, Simon Grayson was there with his assistant, and I spent about an hour and a half talking to him, and left my wife or future wife just sat by herself, and I was like, well, you got to take these opportunities. It's not often Simon Grayson and Glyn Hopkins, I think it's his name, the assistant.
Yeah, or Glyn Hodges, something like
Glyn Hodges, yeah, something like that. I've hired him on Football Manager before. He's quite well rated. So yeah.
that.
Anyway,
I
there's a
remember this actually because I don't. We knew each other, but I don't think we'd started our sports journalism masters just yet, and we were doing bits for
no.
Road Report, weren't we?
It's
So
just
like to bump into Sunderland's manager was quite a big deal, really.
it was. It was a really big deal for me at the time. It was the greatest scoop, even though I never did a story about it. Yeah,
It's good
good times.
journalistic instinct just to book somewhere and have the Sunderland manager turn up.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
coincidence.
Before I forget, I'm going to plug my crossword book, which I always forget to plug. Although I keep saying I always forget to plug it, and I feel like because I'm saying that, I am now remembering to plug it. So maybe I'm just plugging it because I always do. So there you are, £10. Nice Christmas present.
I
I
still
know.
haven't received mine yet, so I can't speak to its quality because I haven't been
Have you
sent
paid
one
the
yet.
£10?
No, that's just a little bit of a sticking point.
Is Yeah, that's general. See what I tell you how capitalism works, right, James? Is basically you pay money, you get a good.
But you know I'm a good socialist. You know I am. I shouldn't really say that in public in the current climate, should I? Bloody hell.
No, I was going to say we're not talking about politics,
No,
not
no,
on here.
let's leave off
Right.
that.
Anyway, we've had 3 minutes there reminiscing about the past. Let's talk about Sunderland because they're all right now. We don't have to talk about when they were bad anymore. But I think that the first thing I want to talk about really is this really beyond our wildest dreams? When we were sat here in the summer and I looked at the fixtures and I knew we had a decent start this season in terms of fixtures, and I know that there's plenty of people saying this is why we've done so well. I think we have to call a spade a spade. Sunderland were given a very, very kind fixture list. But I never saw us having 17 points before November.
No, I didn't. I think it is beyond our wildest dreams in terms of this season. Is it beyond our wildest dreams in terms of what we think Sunderland can be? No, absolutely not. We know this club is a little bit of a sleeping giant traditionally and can achieve great things when everybody's sort of pulling in the right direction. The old oil tanker analogy is used quite a lot, isn't it? It's very hard to turn it around, even harder to get it going in the right direction. But once you do get it going, it's very hard to stop. But yeah, when we sat here in the summer, even when the transfers were coming in, you wonder to yourself, some of these going to be flops. I said on the Raw podcast, it's an extraordinary achievement in the summer to have the overhaul of the squad, the overhaul of the backroom staff, an overhaul of the sport and directorship and that structure as well. To have so many moving parts, so much change, so much flux after a successful season, and for it all to work. Like what bit of it hasn't worked yet? none of it. I mean, there's you could argue before the Chelsea game that the Brian Broby signing wasn't working out, although it's still early days and he hasn't had much football. But Gertrude coming in from the cold and just looking excellent. It's been really impressive to see it all come together. I didn't expect us to have 17 points with 9 games. I mean, coming into the Everton game, if we can have 20 points, I know I'm getting a bit of ahead of myself here. 20 points coming into Christmas, 20 points and it only being November is would be ridiculous. I look back to the Burnley game as well when we lost that 2-0 and I thought, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a tough season. We've lost to a team around us, a team that I happen to think are actually worse than us on paper. Is this going to be a little bit of a slog? But they always seem to bounce back, this group. And just to go off on a bit of a tangent, the amount of late goals we score, I think we scored 4 or 5 past the 90th minute this season, and then obviously the 88th minute against Coventry in the first leg. We all know what happened in the second leg, and then there was the final against Sheffield United as well. That can't be coincidence. Once or twice is a bit of a fluke, but over a period of time, over different players as well, you've got to praise the coach and the fitness, just the general ethos at the club. It has been a dream start. I don't know if it'll last. I hope it does. I'm starting to think it might, but it's been incredible. I was a bit too young really to properly appreciate what was going on under Peter Reid with the 2 7th place finishes, but this does feel special. I mean, this whole sequence really. Last season was incredible, really. Apart from those 6 games where Lebris decided to have his own little mini pre-season, the season was fantastic. We beat Middlesbrough twice. We had great results against Sheffield Wednesday. That early part of the season, we thought we were going to romp it. Yeah, maybe we did get a little bit bogged down, but then to come back around and have the playoff campaign to what we've witnessed in the Premier League with the West Ham game, the Brentford game, winning away at Forest, winning away at Stamford Bridge, which for my money is probably Sunderland's best league result since the last time they won at Stamford Bridge, probably in 2014 or something like that. It's been monumental, really, and I'm really, really enjoying it because it does feel like sort of just rewards. I mean, in October, over the past 10 years, we've played the likes of Gillingham, the likes of Shrewsbury. I think we've even lost to some of these teams in October away from home, and now we've won at Stamford Bridge, which, world champions, won a European competition. It's mad.
It is mad. It's interesting. There's a few things to pick out there, but one thing is that you said about it not being a coincidence we score late goals. I don't know if you saw yesterday the club put up a compilation of late goals from Sunderland in the Premier League. And in your 7-08 season, it was the same colour commentator doing all the games. And every time he was like, "This isn't a coincidence. Sunderland don't do it. Sunderland keep doing this. This is clearly planned." Da, da, da. And it's the same now where we score last minute goals. Well, it can't be a coincidence, but it's just interesting, isn't it? How our first season up all the way back then in 2007-08 was about late goals and passion and hard work and going till the end. And then now it feels like this team is exactly the same. It's about late passion, working hard, finding those extra 1%, winning the game late on. It's just, to me, very funny that I obviously remember with 7-08. That's the first year I had a season ticket and stuff. It's one of my favourite seasons, and it's just wild that there's a lot of parallels you can draw between the two. Although I will say that this team is leaps and bounds better than that team. I think that's pretty obvious, but.
I think in terms of the culture and the identity at the club, I think this is the strongest it's been since the Roy Keane era, really, where you had Niall Quinn, who really understood the club, and a top quality manager who sort of set Sunderland up as the people sort of think, and I think we're sort of there now. Obviously, this team can play, but it's sort of poetic, really, isn't it, that we've come back into the Premier League at a time where we seem to be reverting from playing out from the back to a more direct style. Obviously, the long throw-ins have come back in. People are making the most of set pieces. Everyone's got a set piece coach nowadays. I was listening to the Monday Night Club, and they had a statistician on and a coach, and they said a third of all Premier League goals come from set pieces, which is just incredible. But for Sunderland to make the most of that at the moment through those Mukele throws, and Zola Faye with the corners as well, quality deliveries. I love that. I love that. I love getting it in the mixer. I love this sort of physical challenge Sunderland are laying down to teams as well. Like against Chelsea, they were just like, oh yeah, you get the ball wide, cross it in, but we've got the big guys in the middle, and we're up for that. We're up for that challenge every day of the week. It's that sort of identity that I like to see the club sort of employ, especially on the playing field. Yeah, we've got quality as well, but to sort of have that playing style mirroring Sunderland as a place, hard working, Sunderland as a people as well, very gritty and determined. You know, we all like results, but I guess as a football team, that's what we want to see, isn't it? As people from Sunderland or the wider area, is hard work, graft, and guile as well as skill. And I think at the moment it's quite a special time in terms of that, and just generally as well. I think we've spoken before, but the city feels like it's on the way up. The Kiel Crossing footbridge is fantastic. Like it does look like a little bit of a Wembley way. It's just it's a really really nice time, and I sort of, to go back to the Burnley game, I keep waiting for the sting in the tail. I keep waiting for us to be really brought back down to earth with a bang, but it doesn't seem to happen, and they just keep on producing these excellent results. To be honest, going into the last 10 minutes of the Chelsea game, I was sat thinking in my head, as you do as a journalist, you're thinking, right, what's the narrative? What do I think? What am I going to say? And I was thinking to myself, like, if this stays 1-1, it's arguably like the result of the season, 1-1 against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, coming from behind. I thought that would have been a superb result, but to nick it is just, it's incredible. It really is. And if you look at the I'm going all over the place here, but if you look at the gap now between the bottom three who are really struggling, what is it? Is it Wolves, West Ham, and Nottingham Forest? We're probably like 4 or 5 wins away from them now. It's a considerable gap. It's insane.
15 ahead of Wolves. I think we're 13 ahead of West Ham, and I think we're 12 ahead of Nottingham Forest. So yeah, it's pretty scary.
Which is just crazy. And I know you've got it on your run sheet, so we'll come to it. But I think all Sunderland fans will always worry about relegation, whichever division they are in, and however well they are doing. It's just what we do, isn't it? We're all pleased when we get to safety. I remember when we were doing well under Tony Mowbray, pushing for the playoffs, we were all pleased when we couldn't get relegated again, because that ultimately is the aim. But to have that much of a gap, it does feel quite significant at this point. And not only to have that much of a gap, but to have played so much better than the bottom three teams by quite a distance, I think is important.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of things here which I think we can tackle at the same time. So, firstly, is this Sunderland team legitimate? And secondly, are we realistically safe from the threat of relegation? And I think to sort of set that up for you to knock it down, if you look at teams at the bottom of the league, they try to play to a point per game. That means, therefore, that if Wolves played at a point per game pace for the rest of the season, it would take them 15 games to match Sunderland's points total. Obviously, you did the same for West Ham, you do the same for Nottingham Forest. If Sunderland played as badly as Leicester did last season for the rest of this season, we're talking about a team that'll finish 36-ish points, I think, when I last worked it out. So you're talking about a team that'll do pretty well in the grand scheme of things. 36, 37 is probably going to keep you up. And Sunderland are clearly better than this Leicester City team. And I think, for me, I'm obviously very bogged down in the fact that I'm a Sunderland fan, and I know that things can change, and I've seen things change before, and I've seen many a false dawn. But realistically, the chance of the Sunderland team getting relegated right now after the start we had is beyond slim. I think Opta has it at 10%, and that's probably just because we're a newly promoted team.
Yeah, I mean, I will never rule it out just in case it does happen, because I know what this football club can be like. And as I say, the oil tank has turned and pointing firmly in the right direction. But as hard as it is to get turned around in the right direction, it's actually quite easy for it to start reversing on itself. So I am a little bit wary of that. Is this Sunderland team legit? I think it absolutely is. I think we've played 9 games now, and I think when you get in between 10 and 15 games, I think you start having to really look at it and say, actually, that's no fluke, because any team can get a decent result over 2 or 3 games, but to do it over a period of time of months and sort of 10 to 15 games, I think that's sort of a really, really good barometer of where Sunderland are. I'm not nailing my colours to the mast, also not ruling it out, but I do agree with you. I think there's a very, very slim chance Sunderland go down now. And I think I'd like to know what you feel on this, but I feel like in the media and perhaps as fans as well, we've maybe been a little bit guilty of over analysing Sunderland's tricky festive fixture run, and it is tricky. There's no doubt about that. But if you look at Leeds, it's not that dissimilar. If you look at other clubs in the division, you all tend to play each other at Christmas. Everyone's got a quite a challenging running. Everyone plays a lot of games. You know, Afcon's going to hit other clubs as well. There will be injuries. Christmas throws up different results, doesn't it? It throws up surprises. So I'm just wondering if we've perhaps got sort of bogged down into a bit of a Sunderland sphere when it comes to that. And actually, when you take a step back and you look at everybody else's fixture list as well, it's quite tough for other teams. And there's no way that over that period, Sunderland are going to implode to a degree where they're near the relegation zone again, because it would take them losing every game. And as you say, it would take Wolves probably winning every game over that period for them to be level on points or even in the conversation with each other. So it's a great start. And I think coming into Christmas, we're in an excellent position. And I do think this team is legit. And I think Lebris has proved himself as legit as well, hasn't he, with his tactics, his adaptability, his pragmatism. I've written this and said it quite a lot, but he's just the arch Russell Martin, isn't he? He sets his team up for that game. He never looks ahead. I'm sure he's a principled man and a principled coach in some ways, but in terms of like how he's viewed, I don't think he really cares. The style of football, he's not bothered about that. It's about winning games, and I would much rather have that than somebody like a Russell Martin who, goes down on his shield, goes out on his shield. I didn't like that with Southampton. I think if you're paying for a season ticket, you have a responsibility to win, every game, or at least try to. And if that involves not playing out from the back, then I'm pleased Lebris doesn't go down that route all of the time, because you need to adapt. You need to adapt to every opponent, to every game. There's so much quality in the Premier League. So, yeah, that's my take. Where Regis Lebris is absolutely legit. And interestingly, I think it's really good that he signed that contract in the summer, because if he hadn't, I think the vultures would be circling now. Because to get Sunderland temporarily second in the Premier League after like 9 games is ridiculous. We're now sitting 4th, but it's backwards, really.
Yeah. Interestingly, before I will answer your question about the fixtures and AFCON and stuff, but did we see Enzo Maresca's press conference where he was talking about? He basically admitted that he was outfoxed by Regis Lebris, and he'd said that Sunderland always played with a 4 and then they changed to a 5, and we had no answer to this, which I thought was hilarious, because he's basically just saying, so the Sunderland manager completely flummoxed me with the fact he made a tactical decision and we had no answer to this.
But what is with these Premier League managers? I know, I like Arne Slot and I like Liverpool, but he came out recently and said, like, oh, well, Manchester United play a certain way and then they changed to play Liverpool. And it's like, well, yeah, that is like within the rules, and you've got to adapt to that. You don't just like sort of say on Monday, well, we're going to play this way on Saturday, and then that's it. We're not changing at all. It's absolute madness. I can't understand why people complain about this sort of stuff. Maresca as well, his comments on the long throw. This is what I'm talking about in terms of like Lebris making the most of everything and being pragmatic. Maresca was like, I'm paraphrasing slightly here, but he was sort of like, well, I'm not really too bothered about trying to make the most of long throws. It's not really sort of in my ethos and game plan. And it's like, well, it's undone you there, hasn't it? Like, surely you try and make the most of everything, no matter what it is. It's, yeah, that sort of, I would label it almost pretentious sort of principality, or whatever you want to call it, being too principled. I don't get it. I really don't. No. I'm over the moon. We've got Lebris for that reason, because he's not, he's not too proud to go, well, actually, we've got a guy who can throw it long, and we've got a big guy, Dan Ballard, who can get a flick on. I think they call it, what did the guy on the Monday Night Club call it? The first receiver. So Dan Ballard's your first receiver, and then you get a flick on to Bertrand Traore, cause a bit of chaos, and then Wilson Isidor's there to tap it in. I'm very pleased Sunderland go down that route.
Same. Back to the fixture list and AFCON. I did an Everton preview, like on an Everton channel. I did their preview for the game, and he was saying that they're going to lose Illiman and Dye and Idrissa Gana Gueye to AFCON. That's 2 first-team players for Everton. In Sunderland, if you look at us right now, we've got our back 4. We lose Ronaldo, but Ronaldo, lost for 3 games anyway recently, and I would say we did miss him, but we didn't miss him in the sense our results. We still beat Wolves, we still beat Nottingham Forest. Our results didn't tank because we didn't have him. In midfield, Siddiqui is obviously a massive blow. We've lost Habib Diarra, but we've lost him anyway because he's been injured, and we've not. Again, if you look at the results, we haven't missed him. I think he's a fantastic player. And then in terms of the front line, well, we haven't actually settled on who our best wingers are. And, we do have Brobby, Isidore Mayenda, who'd still be there. Isidore Mayenda can also play on the wings. And I think that I can see a world where we play Leeds at home over Christmas and we play Brobby, Isidore Mayenda. I could definitely see a world where that could potentially happen. So I'm not massively. I think AFCON's been totally overblown for us because nobody's looking at our depth. Gertrude, I always say his name wrong, so I just give both names. But he's not played a lot this season, but he comes in there. He can play anywhere pretty much across the back of midfield, and that's a big option. I think that it is completely overblown. Yes, we'll lose, is it 6 players, 7 players? And it will stretch us in terms of depth. But you also don't lose them for the whole month. Not every team reaches the AFCON final, which, I think is the perception. Ronaldo, for example, with Mozambique, will probably play 3 games and be back for the start of January. So I think it is completely overblown, and I think that teams get injuries and teams, over Christmas often lose players anyway. I think that it's something that people have used as a stick to hit Sunderland with, but fundamentally it's going to be about 5 games. It's not the end of the world, and we play Man City, I think, in that time. We play Tottenham away in that time as well. We've got Brentford away and Leeds and Brighton. They're roughly the games. So other than the Leeds and Brentford games, the other 3 are difficult games anyway. Like, they're not games that we would look at and go, we should be picking up points there. So I'm not, as long as they're here for that Newcastle game, which there will be.
Yeah.
That's all that really matters to me. I think we'll be all right.
But it's a lot easier to say this now, isn't it? With 17 points from 9 games, it all starts to look a lot better and a lot easier. But you're right in what you say. Not every team can get to the final. I think what concerned me initially with all the AFCON debate and talk was that you can't really plan for it because of the unpredictability. Like you said, Mozambique might play 3 games, but they might not. They might get through surprisingly. How far will DR Congo go? So it's very hard to actually plan your squad, isn't it? Because there's no guarantees on who's going to be back when. Somebody's going to be back, but you don't know who, and you don't know at what time. But we have got options. I mean, Chris Rigg can play on the right hand side of the attack as well. Dan Neil can come into midfield potentially, hopefully at some point and test himself. We were joking on the Raw podcast that maybe he's just getting fit to replace Siddiqui for 3 or 4 games. Maybe that's just his role this season, is just be fit enough to do that. Jason joked that he needs to start ultra marathon training or something just so he can cover that role for a couple of games. But yeah, as I say, a lot more relaxed about it. Now we've got 17 points on the board. Other teams will lose players as well. There will be injuries. You can try and predict these things, but the unpredictable always happens. And at the end of the day, we're in an unbelievable position, and we're not even close to AFCON yet. If we'd have had 17 points when AFCON started, I would have been quite pleased with that, to be honest. But to have 17 points and it's not even Halloween yet is it's really impressive.
Yeah, it is. And especially now we know that we can go away to places like Chelsea and win. So when we see Liverpool on the fixture list away, I'm not saying we go there and think we can win in terms of a fan base, but we have a method to hurt these teams, which...
And Liverpool are in terrible form.
Yeah.
I wish we had Liverpool tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say they might have picked up by then. But I wanted to, before we talk a little bit about the Everton game and the rest of the season, I think I want to talk to you about the sort of the journey to this point, because I think it can be sort of... People like myself, I do this as well, but I don't appreciate the moment we're in at times because I'm so worried about, I don't want to look like an idiot posting about Sunderland being 4th in the table. I don't want to, have egg on my face at the end of the season when we get relegated, talking about how good of the start it's been. But I think that a lot of that is wrong, and I think that we as a fan base and as a club have endured a horrific, I would say not a horrific 8 years, because the first 4 years were horrific, and then once we had Kirill and whatnot come in, it picked up. But we've had a really, really horrible time. I mean, we got out of League One through a playoff. We got out the Championship through a dramatic playoff and stuff. But before that, we were embarrassing. It was filmed on Netflix. The ground was, full of empty seats. It was not a brilliant time to be a diehard Sunderland fan. Do you think it's important that everyone enjoys this moment and looks and goes, do you know what? Even if the worst happens this season, winning away at Chelsea, the playoff final, the way we won that whole playoff campaign, we need to look at this last 6 months and go, wow, like what an amazing time it's been to be involved, covering this club, supporting this club.
Of course, you have to enjoy the high points, especially after the lows we've endured, as you mentioned. And if that means Sunderland fans having a little joke, singing "We're going to win the league" away at Stamford Bridge, triggering all of the social media people online who think that we're being serious when we're singing that, we're not. It's a joke. We're enjoying it. We're allowed to. You're entitled to. Why else would you go to football? Like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have a laugh. I don't believe anybody's serious when they're singing that. It's just a laugh. It's not to be taken too seriously, but we should enjoy this. The last sequence over the past 6 months has been incredible. I've mentioned it before, but I've never witnessed anything like it. I've never felt anything like it. Just taking the playoff sequence, the Dan Ballard winner in the last second of the game with the till the end logo round the corner on the advertisement boards in front of the Roker End packed stadium to get to Wembley. I don't think personally I'll ever see anything like that ever again. And then in terms of Wembley, I think beating Sheffield United 2-1 in the playoff final, I think that's sort of my generation's 73 in a way. I think it's that significant, and I think depending on where Sunderland get to, obviously, I think that could be viewed as a hugely significant moment in the club's history if it can kick on as we all hope it does. But you have to enjoy these things. You sometimes, as you say, you can get bogged down when you're covering the club, and you do tend to pull back. I think it's just natural, just in case something bad happens, and you do want to cover yourself if you speak publicly and all of this sort of stuff. But I think in terms of fans, like as the late Davy Atkinson said, let's get carried away because, as I mentioned, what is the point of following football if you can't enjoy this? And I think we've earned the right to enjoy it as well. I think under our old friends Stuart Donald and Charlie Methven, it was divisive that they did split fans at some times, at some points. I mean, everybody sort of universally dislikes them now. But at the time, they did sort of split the fan base down the middle, didn't there, with some of the financial stuff? Some people were still behind them, some people weren't. You had various different Sunderland fan organisations sort of at each other's throats. There was a lot of infighting. I was probably front and centre of some of it, but it wasn't good. And the Charlton playoffs, the Charlton playoff final, that was awful. Obviously Portsmouth as well, and the Checker Trade at the time, that was rubbish. Losing 6-0 at Bolton Wanderers, everybody looks back and laughs and says, "Oh, what a moment that was! It changed the club's fortunes." But at the time, you were like, "Where do we go from here?" I remember going to the stadium and watching Lincoln City come and beat us. What was it, 3-1? Chris Maguire scored a hat-trick, celebrated in front of Lee Johnson. It was the most tin pot thing I've ever seen. It was awful. We've seen some absolute Josh. What was that FA Cup game? Who was it against? Was it against Shrewsbury or Mansfield or something? When John McLaughlin
beat us twice, 2 years in a row.
He had to go up to the stand and go and get the ball. It was embarrassing for a club of Sunderland size to have all of these journeyman Newcastle strikers off from the area or with some connection to the area scoring against us and doing the Alan Shearer, Mary Poppins thing. It was rubbish. It was teams like Wigan trying to force a rivalry with us. Portsmouth, a club I don't mind, trying to force a rivalry with us. Our rivals are Newcastle and Middlesbrough, but we had in Coventry, but we had these teams sort of revel in our demise in it, and it was crap. And I felt that was unjust because I've never thought Sunderland to be an arrogant football club ever, and so to see us sort of tumble through the divisions and then become a bit of a laughingstock, as you mentioned, for the Netflix cameras to see, it was really tough. And even in Kira Louis Dreyfus's times, we've had embarrassment. The Black Cats bar fiasco, then losing that game to Newcastle in the FA Cup. That was an awful period. The Michael Beale era was terrible. So even quite recently, we've had stuff which has been not very good. I mean, I remember reading people's comments online saying they would never forgive the ownership for that Black Cats Bar stuff, and I'd be interested to speak to them now to see what they think with us fourth in the Premier League and the money Kirill's put in, and the work being done on the stadium, the training ground. Whether that's like balanced it out, or whether there'll always be an asterisk. For me, he's probably got credit in the bank now. If anything, I think the club have certainly learned from that. But yeah, it is. I mentioned the Peter Reid era. It's an incredible time, and you just hope that we're going to be on this magic carpet ride for a little while longer. And it's so nice to see everybody unified after such a divisive time covering Sunderland, and have the fans so in tune with the players, so in tune with the local areas, so in tune with the ownership, so in tune with the coaching staff. It's very, very rare that you get that sort of momentum, and quite powerful. This city, this fan base can be very powerful when it's all pointed in the right direction. And I think we're seeing that now. You can't tell me those away fans didn't have an impact at Stamford Bridge. Everybody's remarked on how good they were. I was reading Nordy's comments after the game, because he was sort of like a little bit in bits really in front of the away end. He's been here 5 minutes, but his mind, he said, was going back to all of the bad times Sunderland have endured and all of the bad times Sunderland fans have endured. It's an incredible mentality to have for somebody who hasn't been here that long, to understand the culture of the club, and credit to the club and the fans really for communicating that to new signings. It's mightily impressive, and it's just nice to talk about the club doing well, because we've all had to find things to say when we have lost away at Shrewsbury, or lost to Mansfield, or we lose to Walsall in the League Cup as well. And it's just like going to the Stadium of Light and seeing, what was it, 6,000, 7,000 people there for cup games and all that sort of stuff. It all felt very disconnected at one point, and you did wonder whether Sunderland would ever come back, but we have.
Yes, we have. I want to ask you, I was talking to Martin from ALS yesterday or the day before, and he was telling me about he went to Fleetwood Town away by himself because nobody wanted to go with him, and I think we conceded a last minute goal. I think we drew 1-1 maybe. It certainly wasn't a good result. And he was telling me, he said, God, if you'd said to me at that point, that 5 years later we'd be where we are right now, that would be crazy. And that had me sort of thinking, and I think this is it's a good question to ask, is if you could go back to yourself at one of these points in Sunderland's history in the last 8 years and tell yourself it's going to be okay because we're going to beat Chelsea and be second in the league at the time in October 2025. What do you think would be the point where you would have needed that pick-me-up? What would have been the game or the moment where you would have wanted yourself from the future to say, James, it's going to be okay. We're gonna come through this and it's going to be good in the end?
I think there's probably like three that I would pinpoint. The first one would be the Charlton playoff final. I think the second one would maybe be when the league was curtailed during COVID. Because at that time, like, the world was ending. You didn't know what state football would be in. What there was talk about Sunderland going out of business from some voices, and we'll never know sort of how close they came. So that would definitely be one, because it was settled on a points per game basis. So Wickham went up ahead of us, or went into the playoffs ahead of us.
We lost against, if we'd beaten Gillingham and beaten Bristol Rovers, which were our last two games, I think we would have won it automatically.
But we actually had more points than Wickham at the time, didn't we? Because it went on that points per game basis. And I don't think everybody had played the same amount of games either. So that, for me, I just thought, like, are we ever going to get out of this turmoil? And I think the other one, Lincoln semi-final, just after that, I thought that was crap. That was really, really rubbish, because there were fans who let into the stadium for the first time. I think there was like 7,000 or 8,000 or whatever, but it was actually a really good atmosphere. We were coming from behind in the first leg where we'd been atrocious, and we really did think we were going to do it at one point. I think Charlie White missed a sitter, and after that I just thought, like, this is never going to happen. Like, we're going to be here forever. We're losing to, with all due respect to them, and I don't think this is arrogant to say, but in terms of like the size and the history, like Lincoln City in a playoff semi-final, it's the history and the magnitude of both clubs, the size of both clubs. You would expect Sunderland historically to win that. Obviously, no God-given right to, and everything's level when you step onto the field. But it just felt afterwards like, what are we getting so wrong here that Lincoln City are able to best us and have a better team and sign better loanees and all of that sort of stuff. It was just, yeah, I think those three moments for me. But there was probably loads, wasn't there? The 6-0 against Bolton, you're probably thinking, oh, well, it's never going to happen. As a few of those 1-1 draws and Jack Ross, yeah.
What about when Alex Neil came back and beat with 5-1 with Stoke?
Yeah, that's a good one, actually, yeah.
Yeah,
I suppose there's probably...
proper murder us as well at home.
Yeah, that was good, that actually, because that was on Easter weekend, and we went 5-1 down, and I put 5-1 Jesus Christ, and I can't remember who scored it. Who was that striker they had up front who was doing really well?
Smodics.
Might have been Smodics, yeah. But Blackburn Rovers actually retweeted us with a mashup of Smodics' head with Jesus Christ saying, good guy for Jesus Christ or something. And it went completely viral across all the footy accounts. And I thought, I took it well. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. But by the end of the second week, I was getting sick of being tagged in it. I was like, yeah, believe it or not, I've actually seen it. But yeah, that was a particularly bad moment. I mean, anything in the Michael Beale era was crap. Yeah. So I mean, it's probably easier to pick the moments where you haven't felt that. I would say.
That's why we're putting the arm around our old self. But anyway, let's finish off and talk a little bit about the Everton game, because we've got lots of selection headaches to talk about. We've got a Trey Hume situation potentially, especially with Alderete coming back in. Is Trey Hume the man to drop out, or does Alderete not play? We've got Talby playing well off the left. Do we find a way to fit him in? We've got a formation question now. Do we stick with what we played at the weekend? So I'm gonna throw this to you. What do you think the manager will do? Obviously, we don't know the team news at this point, so there could be an injury which changes this. But what do you see happening if everyone is fit as we expect?
I think he'll probably go back to 4-3-3 at home against Everton, to be honest. The Alderete question's an interesting one, because I'm not an expert on concussion. With the game being on a Monday, does that make it easier for him to come back, give him that extra bit of time? Or do you follow the school of thought, well, actually, there's no reason really to risk him, because we've got Ballard and Nordy who can play in the middle. Hume is being good at right back. We've got Reinildo, so I'd be tempted to go with that back four. I think Gertrude would probably count himself pretty unlucky, because he had a bit of a barnstormer against Chelsea, didn't he? The wings is an interesting one. I think Talby's doing well off the bench. I think, unfortunately, for him in terms of starting games, I think that's going to be his best role. Despite him coming on and affecting the game, I think Enzo Lefebvre is sublime. I think he offers a little bit of control from that wide area. His passing, his work rate, I think he's brilliant. I don't think you can feasibly drop him. A little bit more of a question on the right. I think Traore did improve against Chelsea. Defensively, I think, in an attacking sense, probably needs to sort of up his game. We don't know yet whether Adingra is going to be back, do we? So is that a potential selection call? I keep asking questions to friends about Mayenda. Could he start on the right-hand side? Is that a little bit of an option? I don't think you can drop Isidore. I think it's a similar situation up front as it is on the left-hand side. You've got Wilson Isidore, who's got 4 goals in 9 games. Brilliant, fantastic. You start him, he runs himself into the ground for 60 minutes. He might get you a goal, he might not. But then you do have the option of Brian Broby to bring on, or an Eliza Mayenda up front. So I don't see wholesale changes. I think he will go back to a 4-3-3, and then you'll get an extra man in midfield. He could keep Gertrude in midfield, because it was sort of a hybrid formation, wasn't it, at Stamford Bridge? So yeah, that's what I think he'll do. That's probably what I would do as well. Obviously, you Granit Xhaka undroppable, Siddiqui undroppable, but it's nice to sort of have these. It feels like we've got a good bit of depth now, doesn't it? It really does. I mean, Gertrude, being as versatile and as good as he is, can play anywhere. If Alderete's fit, then that's a big selection headache, really, because Ballard's been brilliant. McQuailey's been brilliant, but then he can go to right back. What are your thoughts on Hume? Because people keep saying to me that maybe Hume's the one that can drop out. I think he's been good. I feel like he's not taking loads of stick, but I feel like everybody's sort of desperate for him to drop out in a sense. But I think he's been fine. I know it's hard because obviously if you've got Ballard, Alderete, and McQuayle fit, like the temptation is to play the three of them in Ronaldo, isn't it? Because they are so good. But I think Hume's been fine.
I think Hume's been brilliant, and I think he. There's two ways of looking at this. Hume's been brilliant and doesn't deserve to be dropped. That's the fact of the matter. But I believe that our best back four is McQuayle at right back, Ballard, Alderete, Ronaldo. I mean, I think that is legitimately. If we were playing a game and it was a must-win, and if we didn't win, everyone died, that would be the back four you pick.
It's a very formidable back four, that as well.
So therefore, if we're saying that, then you have to kind of make a sort of decision there that, well, if we're playing a game on Monday, which we desperately want to win, and that back four of McQuayle, Ballard, Alderete, and Ronaldo, if you think that is your best back four, then is that not the back four you pick?
And it will be interesting to see if he does actually do that, because he can be brutal, Lebris, in his team selection at times. He really, really can in his decision making as well. Just, going back to the likes of Dan Neil and Anthony Patterson, if he will do what's best for the team, and there won't be that much sentimentality about it.
Shall I tell you why there could also be a... Because I've got another point I want to talk about here, is that Everton are probably one of the best wing teams in the league. Iliman Ndiaye and Jack Grealish are two of my favourite players. I mean, Jack Grealish, I love watching Jack Grealish play. He's such a good player. And therefore, that also leads me to think two things. Number one, we, as a team, funnel the opposition to the wing. We don't like teams going central, so we want to push Everton onto the wing, which therefore plays into their strengths because their best players are on the wing. But number two, does that also mean that if you're going to line up Trey Hume or McQuayle against Jack Grealish, what's your best matchup there? And again, I feel like the better matchup there is McQuayle against Jack Grealish, and I think Ronaldo will probably do an okay job against Ndiaye. And then that also leads back to the question of, well, actually, would five work? Would the sort of the back five we played against Chelsea work? Because then it means we can actually double up on these threats on the wing. We can have Alderete and Ronaldo, say, doubling up on Ndiaye, and then we can have McQuayle and Hume doubling up on Grealish. I mean, is that maybe the way to go? Because also on that side, Everton have got Mikalenko, who's a pretty advanced fullback.
Yeah.
Flip side of that, they are playing a centre back at right back, so we could potentially hurt them there because Jake O'Brien's not going to fly forward. So yeah, I think it's interesting that. What do you make of everything I've just thrown at you there?
I think it'll come down to. I guess it'll come down to how David Moyes wants his team to play coming to the stadium. Of like, does he feel that Sunderland can be got at early, or does he feel that they'll sit off for a little bit and just see what Sunderland have got the onus being on the home side to really sort of grab the game? I imagine David Moyes will be saying to his Everton team, look, these are on a good run, just quieten the crowd. he knows what Sunderland's crowd can be like when they get frustrated and quiet. Maybe he's just sort of take the sting out of the game and then sort of look to get them later on. I don't know. I think it's interesting as well. I think Everton could potentially be the most physical team that we've played so far. I think particularly the centre-backs, they could cause their own problems. Tarkowski and Keane from set pieces, and actually that'll be a good yardstick of how good our guys are in the air, because I think they're quality operators. But yeah, I mean, Grealish, he poses a good threat. And that's the bananas thing about the Premier League, isn't it? Is you just look at teams, even the bad teams that we've played, like Forest, like Elliot Anderson in the middle, good player, that had threats all over the field. And it's the same with Everton. I know they lost 3-0 at Tottenham, but there's just so many good players across the forward line. But yeah, again, how will Lebris sort of approach the game at home? Sunderland have tended to be on the front foot, haven't they? So is he going to go out and try and sort of bend the game to his will? I'm not sure. I think in terms of a tactical battle and the questions surrounding it, particularly with Sunderland having changed formations against Chelsea, it makes for quite an interesting matchup.
Yeah, and also if David Moyes is like Enzo Maresca, he might be just completely befuddled at the fact that we could play either a 4 or a back 5. So there we go. Anyway, James,
It'll be interesting. It will be very interesting to see. Well, not interesting because we know what sort of reception he's going to get. But obviously, David Moyes back at the club for the
Yeah, I
first
think
time.
that is interesting because, to be honest, in my head, I hate David Moyes. I really, really do. And what he did was absolutely appalling. But I almost sort of look at this as, if you split up with your girlfriend, when you're a kid, and then,
Yeah.
you're really disappointed about it, but then you get a better girlfriend a bit of a time later. And I sort of feel like, I've got Reggie now. I don't really care about David
Yeah.
Moyes anymore. We're in a better
It,
place.
if it wasn't for his Sunderland stint, I would quite like David Moyes. I think deep down I do quite like David Moyes. I like him as a manager. I like his career. I like the way he talks. But his time at Sunderland was such a disgrace, and he's a very very good manager, and he essentially phoned it in at Sunderland, made so many mistakes, sort of gave up, ripped everything else up that Sam Allardyce had done. I felt as a fan at the time, like he felt he was doing us a favour. That's how he came across. His defeatism after the Middlesbrough game, you know, running Wabi Kazri into the ground, running Jan Kirchhoff into the ground, signing Stephen Pienaar and Jolene Lescott on big money, Brian Oviedo. Financial decisions that would help to kill us in League One, by the way, was a bit of a grim reaper really at Sunderland, and that's
And
what annoys me. That's what
he's
annoys
also
me the
ignored
most.
it.
Yeah, I know. Well, the pundits tend to ignore it as well. It's just
Yeah.
like, well, it was Sunderland. No, you, he would say, and he does have a point, that the club was a shambles at the time. It was, absolutely. But Sam Allardyce managed that shambles and, you know, got something out of the group, signed players. He managed upwards in terms of Ellis Short. David Moyes was incapable of doing that. No, I don't think he wanted to. He felt like he was doing us a favour. And I'll sort of never forgive him for that. But yeah, what annoys me most is that he's a good manager, but he just clearly didn't fancy it at Sunderland.
No, and what's weird is he is a Sunderland manager, isn't he? Like, you look
Oh
at
yeah, everybody was
Sunderland and
delighted.
Everton are similar clubs, aren't they? And we've got similar identities. So therefore, even West Ham in a way are quite. West Ham are like a northern London club. They're probably the most northern London club,
Yeah,
certainly of the
yeah.
big ones. So like he sort of fit it. I know they didn't love him, but he kind of fit in there. It's just weird that Sunderland was just such an absolute tire fire when I would have sworn that David Moyes was a Sunderland manager. I think that's the most frustrating thing.
I think if you could have picked one manager to get after Allardyce, everybody would have picked Moyes. Everybody was
Yeah.
absolutely delighted, but the game's changed obviously since then. I think he had a big hand in recruitment and got that wrong. That probably wouldn't be allowed to happen now. It is true that Ellis Short lost interest at the time, and the club was a mess. There was all sorts going on, but he still had Defoe up front, who was, even in that season, scored a bunch of goals, didn't he? And as I say, I can never forgive him for what he did to Jan Kirchhoff, because all you needed to do with Jan Kirchhoff was just to tell him to turn up on a Saturday. Don't train during the week, just keep yourself ticking over. But no, he went and ran him into the ground, and he was crocked the whole time, and we ended up going down. And Jan Kirchhoff's never been the same since.
It's true. Right, that's perfect. We've went 47 minutes, so we've done a little bit of added time here. I was trying to do 45, but we've had the +3 on there. Thanks, James, for coming along and joining me here. Obviously, everyone who's watching this will know who you are, but, check out the Sunderland Echo and James's Twitter feed, which you've got a lot of followers on there these days. How many followers have you got on Twitter?
I'm actually quite close to 20,000, which is
20,000.
bananas. I don't know why people bother, because I just chat a load of nonsense, really.
You've got a League Cup second round attendance.
I have, and I'm also on TikTok, which is like 2,500. So that's a bit pathetic.
Oh
Really,
yeah,
so
you see, I can't
yeah,
abide. I started one, but I can't abide it. I hate TikTok so much.
there's like the Sun and Echo YouTube as well. So we're sort of doing both at the moment. But yeah, my bosses and company are trying to push us to do more videos. So I'm currently trying to
Get your pretty
upgrade
face
my
on there.
skills. Yeah,
Yeah.
and sort of put myself out there a little bit more, as well as the 110 other things I'm required to do. So anyway, that's a conversation for private.
I was gonna say, yeah. Well, don't send this to your bosses. Anyway, thanks for coming on,
No.
James. Check out all the good stuff happening on the Echo, and we'll see you. I don't know when we're playing Monday. I'll probably make another couple of videos before then. As a freelance person, I'm always full of time. So anyway, James, thanks. We'll see you soon.